Hello, welcome everyone. In this video, I want to discuss the 4 modifications to the hours of service rules that was announced by the FMCSA on May 14th. I'm Vineet Bade with ELD Mandate, and this announcement was kind of kicked off by Elaine Choi, the Secretary of Transportation, who stated that these changes would result in increased safety and increased flexibility for America's truck drivers. In this video, I want to break down each of the 4 different changes that have been placed and see how it impacts your life as a truck driver. Also, I want to discuss any overall repercussions that might come into place based on these modifications. First, to give a bit more of a history on how these changes were made, we have to go back to August of 2018 when the FMCSA opened up for public comments on the existing hours of service rules. Each of these 4 modifications that will be discussed in this video are a result of some comments that were made by American trucking organizations across the country. To discuss some of the impact that we believe that these changes will have, the FMCSA predicted that just one of the modifications would result in savings of $2.81 billion to the trucking industry over a period of the next 10 years. So let's get started with the first modification. You'll see in this chart, the left-hand side has the existing HOS rules, while the right-hand side has the revised, updated rules that will be implemented later on this year. The first modification is on what constitutes a short-haul driver. Existing rules say for a CDL licensed truck driver to count a short haul, they have to drive within 100 air mile radius of their starting/reporting location for that day. The modification has updated this from 100 air mile radius to 150 air mile radius to count as short haul. This will mean that more trucking companies can count as short haul since it adds that extra 50 air mile radius to what can count under short haul. I want to note here that non-CDL licensed short haul drivers, there's been no modification on the range for those. It used to be 150 air miles, and the updated rules are still 150 air miles. I also want to note for those that don't know about the air mile radius, when I say 150 air mile radius, that doesn't mean a truck is only allowed to drive 150 miles that day. No, instead, this means that that truck is allowed to go within a circle of 150 miles from the starting location. So they can drive as many miles as required as long as they stay within that circle of 150 air miles. The second change that they've made under the short haul rule is currently, if you're a short haul driver, you're required to be released from work 12 hours from starting your reporting time. So the moment you go on duty or to drive, the first thing you do in the day, you only have a 12-hour window to do that. This has been bumped up to 14 hours to match what's there for long haul drivers and also give a bit more flexibility to these short haul drivers so that they don't have more time in the day to do driving events, but they have more time in the day to do on duty or off duty work. In general, this change, I believe, will cause more trucking companies to come under short haul and will add a bit of flexibility to current short haul drivers by bumping up this reporting time right now being 12 hours to 14 hours. Another thing to note that is pretty interesting is there is an ELD exemption. So this only is talking about ELDs. There's an ELD exemption for short haul drivers that have to occasionally do long haul. And I think more trucking companies can fall under this as well. To give a quick recap on what that exemption is, if you're a short haul driver, which more trucking companies will come under in this, if you're a short haul driver, but you have to do long haul work for 8 days or less in a 30-day period, then you're exempt from requiring an ELD. And again, I believe more trucking companies can fall under that after this modification. To see a bit more, to learn a bit more about all the ELD exemptions and this one in particular, we have a video about that as well, or you can check out our blog for more details. The second modification, and this is the big money winner for the FMCSA. This is the modification that they said would result in savings of $2.81 billion over the next 10 years. And this is a modification to the 30-minute break rule. Currently, if you go on duty or on driving, you have to take a break of off duty or sleeper berth within 8 hours of starting your time. What we have updated and revised this to is now this 8-hour clock requiring a break only starts when a driving event starts. So before, or currently existing, this clock would start when you go on duty or driving, and what this has been updated to is only for driving. And this could help certain truck drivers because let's say you start your day with maybe an hour of on-duty work. An hour is a lot, but let's say that happens. You would be required to take a break 7 hours after that. What the updated rule says, you only have to take a 30-minute break after you start a driving event. The second modification within this rule is the 30-minute break time in the existing hours of service rules had to be either off-duty or sleeper berth time. What this has been updated to is that 30-minute break time just has to be a non-driving event. So it could be off-duty, sleeper, or on-duty, and you can actually combine these three as long as there's 30 straight minutes of a non-driving event. This provides a bit more flexibility, I believe, to truck drivers because now you're not required to take a break as quickly as you would before. It might still make sense for you to take break whenever you need it, but this gives you that extra flexibility. For example, let's say you know the first stop that you have will take 7 hours and 30 minutes to drive to, but you spend an hour doing on-duty work. So then you have to take a break before actually reaching your stop. Now, that break is only required once you start a driving event. So this gives a bit of flexibility to that. And then also, having that 30-minute break time actually being on duty also gives a bit more flexibility to truck drivers. The next modification, the third out of the four, is an update to the adverse driving condition exception. So currently this exception is in place if a truck driver, before the start of their run, didn't know of adverse driving conditions in their run. If that's the case, a truck driver can use this exception to increase the driving allowed per day from 11 hours to 13 hours. But this exception currently still has the 14-hour driving window for that day and doesn't modify this. To specify a bit more on what counts as an adverse driving condition, I just want to note here that this is something that a truck driver wouldn't know about before starting their run. And it would be something like snow, fog, a traffic accident, road work that causes a huge traffic delay, anything that would make it difficult for the truck driver to do their regular work. This doesn't take into account things that a truck driver would know about in advance. For example, rush hour traffic, that making them slow down. This wouldn't come into place then. So this has a great benefit where instead of having an 11-hour driving limit, you have a 13-hour driving limit. What this has been updated to, you still have those 2 extra hours for your driving limit per day. It's still 13 hours. But now, instead of having the 14-hour driving window, that has been bumped up to 16 hours. And this is actually great for flexibility. For example, let's say it's snowing and it's going to be tough to drive for the next hour. Now, a truck driver can get off the exit, kind of wait it out a bit longer because they know they don't have to finish their run within 14 hours. They have this bumped up to 16 hours. And also you can maybe drive a bit more slowly because you have those 2 extra hours under your belt for that day. You have 13 hours. So this does give a bit more flexibility for things that are adverse driving conditions. And this exception is, in my opinion, improved due to this update. And the final modification is an update to the split sleeper berth provision. This provision currently allowed 2 periods separately to count as off-duty. So one would be the longer period, which would be at least a minimum of 8 consecutive hours in sleeper berth, along with the shorter period of 2 hours of off-duty or sleeper berth to come under this provision. What this has been updated to is now, instead of requiring 8 consecutive hours, you're required 7 consecutive hours in sleeper berth for the longer period. And then for the shorter period, you need a minimum of 2 hours of off-duty or sleeper berth in order to come under this provision. Both of the long period and short period, though, do need to add up to at least 10 hours in order for this to work. So let's say if you do 7 hours consecutive in sleeper berth, you would require 3 hours of off-duty for this provision to still work. So this gives a bit more flexibility again in instead of requiring that 8 full consecutive hours. Let's say you sleep for a shorter period of time. Maybe you could do 7 hours here, 3 hours again in the future. Now, the second modification, I think this one is a far more important one within this rule, is currently the shorter period of 2 hours of off-duty was counted as part of the 14-hour driving window that you're allowed per day. But with the update to this rule that the FMCSA has made, neither the longer period nor the shorter period will be counted as part of the 14-hour driving window. This greatly increases that driving window because now, instead of being cut those 2 hours if you're off duty, you get those hours back. And again, this is the split sleeper berth provision. It's to learn a bit more about this and to see how this currently works. There's a lot of different YouTube videos on this, and we'll have a blog on this as well. So those are the 4 modifications that the FMCSA has recommended. The first question you might have is, when will these actually be implemented? When is the date when I can actually start using these? And the answer to that is, this will be implemented 120 days after these changes get published in the Federal Register. We believe that this means that these changes will be implemented sometime in September of this year. And I do believe all the 4 ones have increased certain amounts of flexibility to truck drivers. Maybe there's more that could have been done, but any step in the right direction is a good step. If you have any questions on any of these modifications, or you're not sure exactly where you stand, feel free to email me at vineet@eldmandate.biz. I'll be happy to talk to you and chat with you about any of your questions. You can read this full video in blog format by going to our site eldmandate.biz/blogs. One thing, though, is we are very excited about these changes. Again, it's the first step that we're hoping is in many steps, and we will be ready with these changes implemented the day it is legally allowed within our ELD apps. We'll make sure that you can take advantage of all these modifications as soon as possible. And we'll be there for you truck drivers all across the country. I just want to note, information on this video is not constituted as legal advice, so general information purposes only. If you got anything out of this video or you want to give some more of your friends information about this video, feel free to share it, like it, and subscribe to our channel if you'd like. So this is Vineet Bade signing out. Thank you.